Okay, we're live.
Yay, hi.
Hi.
How are
Hey,
you?
good. Before we start, look at
Yep.
my drink.
No, it's so hot here. What?
Doesn't it look awesome?
Yes.
It's part of my fermented flour drinks.
Okay.
This one is made with dried uh, Raja Ulam flowers
Okay.
and fermented with Rangoon jasmine.
London Jasmine. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
It's awesome. It's really, really good. And it's interesting is that sometimes your visual
Mm.
kind of determines what you think something is. So when I was trying to think like,
What?
what does this taste like, right?
Yeah.
I thought, oh, it's good. Does it taste like watermelon? Because it kind of looks like a
Does it
watermelon.
look
Huh?
does it look more red on your side?
It's redder, yeah. So
Describe
maybe
the
it looks
color.
more peach to you, more like
Brown.
apricot
Yeah,
peach.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Correct,
yeah.
correct. I was thinking
But,
iced lemon tea.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Okay. So we said that we wanted to talk a little bit about food
Mm.
because we are prepping to
Yep.
do a edible education weekend,
Yes.
right? And so we're
Yep.
starting to go through the mechanics of it, like laying out the curriculum,
Mm-hmm.
uh, figure out the date. So we're going to do it since we've been given an extra day for Malaysia Day to make it a long weekend. We're
Yes.
gonna do the weekend. So I'll be posting it soon on the site. Um, so I kind of wanted to, since we have to think about this, right? We have to prepare our
Yep.
materials and stuff like that. So I think one thing that we can do is really just talk about the broad philosophies because I'm quite interested in how do we teach people, particularly children,
Yep.
about a concept that's actually quite complex. It is both simple and it's complex. You know,
Mm.
it's very intertwined with our history and heritage and stuff like that. But it's
Yep.
also very, very influenced by modern culture, uh, peers, all this kind of stuff. So
Yep.
last week I talked with Raghu, and
Mm.
it was what was interesting is that I discovered I was asking him a it's very similar question. How did you learn? I'm like, we're trying to figure out how to teach, how should you eat? Because people are eating very badly now. You know, they're, it's actually affecting their health. It's affecting uh, their health outcomes. So we want to sort of be able to figure out a way to impart this sort of knowledge about how they can do better here. And I thought it was quite interesting to see that actually India is doing a lot better than Malaysia in it's a bit more resilient against this sort of
Mm.
all these sort of forces that are actually changing our food sovereignty. We are very quick to take up fast foods and stuff like that.
Mm.
And I get the impression from him that it's there's a pushback. There's a pushback from the community. There's a pushback from
Mm.
farmers, and I thought that was quite interesting. Like, and that's a big question for us: is how do you build that kind of resilience? Is that is it you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
how do we? I mean, is that worthwhile work? To actually
Yeah.
develop that kind of content, develop that kind of
I
programming that
mean,
actually.
I I had a similar conversation with a bunch of Spanish friends from like a couple of years back. So they're Muslims from Spain, and when they
Hmm.
came to Malaysia, they were quite appalled at the quality of halal food here.
Oh, is
Not
that
about the availability of it, but the
okay?
quality
Yeah,
of it.
yeah, yeah. It's true. Yeah.
So they were very shocked at why people or locals were favorable to like highly sugar rice foods
Yeah,
and
which is a
and very
thing.
fried foods. And then I at that time I didn't really think of it as much because I don't really consume, I mean I consume it, yes, but it's not something that I like. I don't goreng pisang every day. I don't, cucuk udang every day. It's like a once in a blue moon kind of a thing. So I don't
Sure.
really think about
Yeah.
it that way.
I
And
think
I mean, sugar rice is more
actually even
familiar.
that is something worth teaching. It's like go ahead and have a little something every now and then.
Yeah. Once in a
Yeah,
while,
yeah,
it's fine. It's not
yeah,
gonna kill you. But doing it
yeah,
every day, it accumulates, and your body just can't detoxify from that fast enough.
yeah.
So that's a whole other conversation. But coming back to the Spaniards, basically for them, the concept was halal was clean eating.
Hmm.
You know, halal was eating vegetable dishes over carbohydrate rich meals that had high value in nutrition. So their version of halal was, to me, it sounded very organic and vegan more than it sounded halal. So that was one of like kind of really made me think about it a little bit.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and for them it was like, hey, you know what? If there's yogurt for breakfast, that's fine. I don't need the roti canai just because that's halal. Compared to where they were saying in Bukit Bintang, and there was just a lot of available Chinese food, and they were just uncomfortable with the fact that Chinese food had so many like soy sauce and oils, seed oils like sesame and stuff like that. So they were very
Can I
cautious
just
about
ask?
that. Yeah.
Can I just ask what? How come they're Muslim? What are they like a big? Are
Culturally,
they
they're
part of?
Muslims. Yeah, they're
But
Spanish,
are
but they're
they
Spanish
actually
Muslims.
Spanish?
Yeah.
So there is a community of Muslims.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
which is not unusual since it's
yeah.
Ottoman. Like Portuguese was
Mm.
Muslim.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, all right.
Yeah. So I found it really, and I know them through Permaculture Network.
Hmm.
We kind of met over something else, and then we became better friends because of the Permaculture Network. So when they brought this up, I was like, okay, that's very interesting that, that's what you perceive as halal. Compared to, for us, halal means it's slaughtered, halal means it is, raised well.
It's the
And
rules.
all
Yeah,
of
the
that,
rules of halal. Yeah,
yeah, all of that
yeah.
participate in their decision making. However, quality, nutrient density, um, farm ethics were part of their larger value of halal, which in Malaysia, we outsource. We assume as long as you put the logo on the door, it's good to go. They don't question anything else. So I found that was a very unique conversation about food. And I think it was after that because I was trying to feed them something local and
Ah,
interesting,
okay.
right?
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
when I started looking for, like, salted black beans with fish. I was looking for these kind of things that were uniquely, say, Chinese, but not with lard,
Sure,
traditionally
sure,
prepared, for Chinese, but
sure.
it fit the quality of halal. And then at that time, I think there was a tempeh burger like available in the market, and so we made like those black bean burger and tempeh burger and mushroom burger, and they had quite a lot of that in their backup, like, travel food kit. And it was very interesting to bring them to some organic farms and really consider what they were thinking as part of the larger spectrum of the sovereignty of food. And so
Mm.
sovereignty was a whole other conversation because they're permaculturists. So they and the Turks, so we had a couple of friends also from Turkey at the same time, who came, and they had like a farm in the mountains. And for them, it was more about growing fruit trees that were long, have long lifespans. So they become a bit more of a foraging forest. And because Turkey does quite a lot of berries and stone fruits and all these kind of things. So it's really interesting to see that for them, dry fruits was a big part of their diet. Compared to, for
Mm.
us, we don't really have dry fruits
Mm.
and nuts as part of our diet. I mean,
Sure.
we eat kacang lah, like the peanut, but we don't really eat other nuts as a staple. So
We
these
don't eat
were like
dried fruit
just,
so much, do we? Did we used to?
yeah,
Did we used to?
ikan bilis, udang kering,
No, but
you
like
know,
dried fruit. Didn't we
not
eat things
much.
like you know what we used to eat? We eat more jeruk, pickled things
Yes,
like
pickles, yeah,
mango and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. Even rice, right? They make what's that? The tapai, tapai ubi and
Right.
tapai pulut. So we do more fermentation. It is also
So
because our region is hot. right? So you have
Yeah, I think
like
it's got something to do with
rice is fermented.
I think it's got something to do with the fact that it just suits some things more. Like for example, fermentation is good here. Whereas I think maybe
Yes,
drying fruit is problematic because
very hard humidity,
it attracts ants. Like I don't dry sweet
humidity.
things. And we don't I
Yeah,
don't dry sweet things because I know we just kind of have a problem with lizards and ants and stuff like that, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And the humidity doesn't help because as it's starting to dry, it will then become a little bit more moist, and then that's when you get mold. So it doesn't quite work for us, but fermentation does. So coming back to this conversation with these guys, I felt like, hey, you know what? We've got something to offer in this conversation. We eat a lot of natural sugar. We have palm sugar, which comes from apong. It comes from sagu. It comes from coconut. It comes from different kinds of palms. So that was something that I was like, oh, I was so excited about showing them like different kind of sugars. And then they're like, see, you guys, you eat a lot of sweet stuff. I'm like, yes, because we have access to it. So, and then they tried, what's that, Nira? When you cut the coconut
Yeah,
flour, you get the liquid.
yeah,
When it ferments, it becomes toddy.
yeah.
So Nira is the before it gets fermented, toddy is the after, the alcohol that comes from it.
You can get it or you can get it on the East Coast. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's much more
Yes.
common there.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so, so we took them to Klang and then they saw some of the plantations and stuff like that. So I feel like sometimes we discount our cultural heritage around
Absolutely,
food
absolutely.
because we
I
just
think
think
so.
it's not what we have access to. We just go straight for the Western available food. We go
Yeah, we
straight
seem
for
to,
what's
and we
fast
picked the
food.
wrong things, and it's so interesting because for a couple of reasons. One is, a lot of the innovation that's happening with plant-based foods that are coming out of the U.S., things like ripple milk, egg,
What's
the egg
that?
substitute, it's actually becoming a thing. I mean, it has some ups and downs. There's
Yep.
pushback from because I think the meat lobby is pretty strong.
Okay.
So they've actually put out quite a bit of propaganda about plant-based food. They don't
Mm.
want them eating into their territory. But then it's also writing itself a little bit. So what was really interesting is one of the ingredients that actually is like ripple milk is actually made with pea protein, and pea protein is something
Okay.
that we grew up eating. Is dal. You know, it's like
Yep. Yep.
now we're just gonna let some Silicon Valley bro develop uh, the next generation of foods of things that we
Yeah.
used to eat for breakfast every single day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was also, when I was talking with Raghu, he's telling me about preparing dosai, you know,
Yep. Fermented
which is
rice.
another
Yep.
very interesting food. It's fermented lentil.
Mm.
He's talking about how it needs to be done overnight and stuff like that. But that's another, these are plant-based, but they're protein rich, you know.
You know what?
They're,
People
yeah.
talk. It's so easy to find people raving about sourdough. So say fits the bill.
Really, really. And Vade.
Yeah, and it's really curious how we so quickly swap out what
Yeah.
is common to us without questioning
Yeah.
and jump onto the bandwagon which looks like progress or cool.
Well,
But
I mean,
yeah,
which
it's
sort of loops back to what I was saying about how do we build that? Because,
yeah.
these things have, like in the States, I saw this happen. You know, uh, it took a few things to happen and people started to get into like organic food, for example.
Mm,
And then it was really expensive. So it felt very privileged. You had to, be privileged or whatever.
yep,
But slowly farmers gained some economies of scale. It starts
yep,
to go down. Now you see it as a much higher representation on the
yep,
supermarket shelf.
yep,
Same thing with better quality foods. For example, uh, before I left the States, that the last 10 years of that was very much about heirloom vegetables
yep.
becoming a thing. It's
Mm,
like people had started to lose sight of what a vegetable was. Like a tomato from the supermarket it was just like a watery thing. And then when you started to taste an actual heirloom tomato or you grew
Tomato.
on yourself, it was so different. The flavor was
Yeah.
so different. And then before you know it, I mean, when I left, when you go to the farmer's market, there were about 30 kinds of heirloom tomatoes you can buy.
Oh,
You know, striped ones, huge ones, black ones, and people were starting to grow all these different ones. So, I think there's some hopefulness that things can be started, things can be.
yeah. But I feel like when it comes to impressing ideas like this on young kids, the idea should always be to introduce them to a spectrum of availability.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then they should have the opportunity and freedom to experiment. So, for instance, if you give them three types of quality of tomatoes to cut and make
Yeah.
into a tomato salad. So
Yeah.
the process of cutting, right? The texture that you're cutting into, how watery it is, how
Yeah.
much flesh you get, how it tastes like when they put it in your mouth. And I think you can only learn that when you're doing it, not when
Yeah.
the salad is done and you're just putting the finished combo in your
Yeah. I
mouth.
mean, which also sort of,
I think it needs
which
that
is also,
hands-on.
which is also talking about
Yeah,
something that we did the problem here, which is actually just choice. I mean, children
yeah,
are not offered choices in decision
correct.
making. They just
Mm,
eat it, this is what it is, as opposed
mm.
to being given some, just given and
But
I
that's
think
the
that's
beauty
our
of
approach.
being an enrichment space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think that's one value that we will bring to our workshop is actually
yeah,
this idea that it's, we're just going to offer you some ideas.
yeah.
So one of them is actually that, the idea that we're going to teach you to grow things, but we're not going to tell you to grow vegetables.
Mm,
So
correct.
you can choose because one of the reasons to do that is because, um, what we actually have lost our ability to eat from trees. Actually, that's we used to forage more from trees.
Yeah,
Like ulams, and we ate a lot more tree leaf thing than actual the kind of vegetables we
yeah,
eat now, which are more like farm
yeah,
vegetables. You know,
yeah.
which when I was a kid, you couldn't really get that easily, and they were more expensive. You know, because they
Right.
had to come from Cameron Highlands or stuff like that. So that's one area, and then we also okay. So another thing Raghu was saying, which is also connected with us, is that he said his grandmother used to say that if it's hard, it's good for you. That means it should be harder to chew, and there is if you have to work at it, there's more value to it, which is also kind of true, and that's one of the problems with our food. And it actually started with a Western kind of drive to eat food that's easy to eat. We just don't want to chew anything anymore. We want cauliflower, and we don't want this very fibrous lowland tropical vegetables that we
Yeah,
used to eat, like what is that, sayumanes and stuff like
right.
that. So
Funny
so that
story.
yeah.
My brother, Laiman, and me were traveling through India many years ago, and we went to this little hill town called Uti, and we bought corn at the side of the road. It was boiled. It looked amazing. Eh? We were,
I
we
think
were
I've been to
cold
Uti.
because it's a hill station, right? So
Yeah,
it's really
yeah,
cold, and then we bought corn, which is hot and piping, and it's just
yeah.
it's like to die for, right? Put it in our mouth, and good God, was it a mouthful of fiber because it was really
Ah,
chewy. It was so chewy. I think we managed to go through like half of it, and then we made friends with the horse, and we fed the horse. It was when you're not
right.
used to high fiber in something,
Yeah,
you really cannot imagine
yeah,
the origin of that plant and
yeah,
how much hybridization has happened for it to
yeah.
get to market and mainstream. You eat
Right.
corn today, you cannot imagine that it can actually be that fibrous, or the kernels can be, as large as my thumb. I've seen
No, I
corn
mean
this
that's
big,
that's what they
and
do.
the
They actually
kernel,
breed. They breed these values of the vegetables. That's why, like in the States, people don't eat anything bitter. It's been bred out of all the vegetables. Broccoli is not,
this,
not even a little bit of bitter.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
was what I learned from that experience. I'm like, holy God, never did I expect. And maybe my exposure was to sweet corn, and even the corn that we grow here is not as fiber dense as the one that you get in India. But that was like, what did I just put in my mouth?
Uh,
You know, it was like oats, but sweet and juicy. It was really weird.
Right, right.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that was
Actually, even
that was one of the
protein.
beginnings of like questioning no, hybridization and selection, and you know what's been mainstream in the supermarket, because the selection is very narrow.
Yeah, even the
Yeah.
proteins, like even if even at a wet market, I'm not even talking supermarket. Even at a wet market
Mm,
now, the fish you buy are all steak style. And that is not the kind of fish we used to eat when I was a kid. When I was a kid, we ate small fish. That means you're eating, you're crunching the tail and crunching the head. They go right down to this size to about this size.
yeah.
Now, most of them are farm steak type fish, like
Yeah.
siap cup and the ikan merah and things like that. So,
That's
and
the thing
this
I
is all
like
to
about
do
living on the coast. Yeah.
And
The
this is all to do with the
variety is
fact
still
that we
there.
just want something easier to eat. It's just easier to, you don't
But
have to.
he's also the buyer. It is also the buyer. The buyer is setting the efficiency based on their cold storage, their cold chain. So they
Yeah,
want boxes this size, they want fish this size,
that's
they
true
want
too.
boxes at
Yeah,
average
that's
weight,
true too.
so that they can pay a almost standard rate. So they
Yeah,
are pushing this down to the farmers who are producing and catching the food. And therefore, there's a lot of bycatch, there's a lot of waste, there's a lot of. So this is where the definition of food loss
yeah,
comes before retail, and food
yeah.
waste happens after
Which is
purchase.
really high, right? It's something like thirty
It's
percent or
high on the
something
both ends.
crazy. Yeah,
It's high on the both ends.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like for every, I think, 100 potatoes, like maybe 40% is lost before retail, and then about like 20% is not eaten or rotten before it hits, you know, and not consumed. So yeah, you
Mm.
only eat like whatever the balance is, which is really sad. And it's a lot of effort to plant. It takes a lot of water to grow. It takes time, logistics. Yeah.
So just to look back to this weekend programming
Mm-hmm.
that we're going to do, it's part of something that we call edible education, and it's actually four components to it. There's something called
Yeah.
Eat Your Landscape, which is really about understanding your food sovereignty, actually, because it's
Yeah.
really about understanding what comes from your own natural environment.
Yeah.
Um, and then the next one is growing wisdom, where we want to teach kids how to grow things. We just don't necessarily want to teach them that they must grow vegetables, but we do. There is a basic skill set in knowing how to grow things, so that's something
Yeah.
we want to. And then we will also uh, make it more specific that we will teach them how to grow things organically, which is another, so
Mm.
that they actually learn. And, something that we will also talk about is, there's a better way to do things,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it affects other people, it affects our planet, it affects other
It
animals.
affects the
So,
animals around them. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we will teach them how to grow things, like the basics of how to grow things, and they can kind of decide
Yeah.
uh, what they want to do with it. And then
Yeah.
what we won't do is the next two, which is one is just nourish, which is actually a big deal. Like a lot of people just don't know how to eat, like or
Yeah.
what to eat, or what is the right thing
Yeah.
to eat anymore.
Yeah.
What is actually what something we ate 50 years ago. And then the last section is actually the skill set to make food, which is another big area. We live in Asia with many different kind of heritage ways of preparing things, of fermentation and sourcing and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And we keep moving to this Western idiom of food,
Yeah.
and it's changing our health actually in a
Mm.
lot of ways. So so let's just talk about the first section, which is to eat your landscape. And
Yeah.
I think it'll be really great to just um, because I think people are very disconnected from their landscape, and actually the
Yeah.
understanding that actually you're getting food from your landscape.
Yeah.
Have you got your thing plugged in?
Yes. Yeah. It's plugged in.
Don't plug it in.
Okay.
because we don't know whether it's going to
Okay.
go in.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Hopefully it did.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think in terms of eating the landscape, I think when you do a permaculture design,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
look at your
Which is a kind of a key part of permaculture, right? It's actually,
yeah, we look at the area around our house, and then we decide,
yeah,
where cooler, where is it hotter, how much sun, what are the leveraging points that we can, interface between two different zones and stuff like that. And then you design from there in a landscape
sure.
that's already there
Yeah.
that you want to introduce something. But like in your garden, when we bring the kids out, I think the cool thing is that they can see what things thrive in which area because the ecosystem is
Yeah.
somewhat established.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
actually, it's a smaller component of the whole the 2 days. So
Yep.
the first one I do more of sort of a theoretical one, which is just more
Yep.
broad, and then the next day you'll do a more specific one, which is understanding like, oh, you can't grow under a tree.
Mm,
The problem's growing on a slope.
yep.
Uh, this is we landscape does define what you grow, weather defines what you grow. So there's a lot of things that affect
These are your
you know
limitation factors, lah.
yeah, yeah, and and understanding them as a sort of a basic knowledge
Hmm.
skill set. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that should be kind of interesting. And that's for this weekend. But if we were to do more of it, and we do it for adults and stuff like that, we would probably. Oh yeah, well, and we will teach them things that are actually tropical lowland because actually that's something that is disappearing. So people actually don't know what that is anymore. They don't know what are tropical lowland plants anymore because we don't really see that much of it in the marketplace anymore. We're tending to see cool temperate plants to eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and um, and then the other thing is actually our landscape and agriculture as we move away from heritage versions, we are also losing landscape, for like coconuts, for example. I grew up with coconut trees as part of our landscape, and now there aren't any. Kids don't see coconut trees anymore. That used to actually impact our art. If you saw an old
Yep.
watercolor of Malaysia in the 50s,
Yep.
it'd be a kampong with coconut trees and the moon
Yes.
or something, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's not what you would see now. So yeah, so I think there's some broader things. So I think we will actually need to see what is the age range of who's coming,
Yep.
to see like how to pitch it. I
Yep.
wouldn't even mind opening it out to parents because I think this is something that a keen parent could learn and teach their kids,
Yeah. Yeah. Over time, you learn different
right?
things from the same
Yeah,
landscape. Yeah.
yeah, because they're encouraged to teach kids to grow things, and
Yep.
we want to replace the information with other ambitions. Teach them about their food sovereignty or their
I feel like
landscapes.
if we teach in dynamics, then you would see something like if you were to grow fish in a pond, what would the fish eat? Would it eat at the surface level, in the middle, or would
Oh,
it,
that's interesting. Yeah, that's
from the
interesting.
bottom, right? And then you look at, then you have different kind of plants because you have algae on the bottom. You've got floaters on the top. You've got plants that grow in the ground and then go up, right? And then the fish would use these different ecosystems to do different things, to lay eggs, to hide, to get shade from the sun,
Yeah,
and they participate with the larger ecosystem of like snails and mosquito larvae and all these other things, right? So then you have this dynamic micro ecosystem, and then you look at it from okay, if it was a paddy field, how would it look different? Because you eat rice and I eat rice, but the rice comes from this, wetlands ecosystem, and then we stack it from there. So there's so many things that I think kids just don't know because it doesn't
they don't know.
exist. There is
Yeah,
no baseline.
yeah.
Yeah, there is no baseline.
It's so funny because when I was staying with my dad when I first came back, and he had a Indonesian maid, and she just came from small kampong in Java.
Yeah.
And when she described her life, that was actually her environment. You know,
Yeah.
they had paddy fields in the back, so there was some kinds of things they harvested from the paddy fields,
Mm.
some kind of vegetables, like baremi and stuff like that. They grow on the edge of the
Yep.
wetlands and stuff.
Yep. A lot
And
of
then
love to go on the edge of wetlands.
they would throw a wet tika rug to let the mushrooms grow. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and, so they actually did a lot of things
Mm-hmm.
in sort of tandem or in
Symbiotic
unison with the
relationships.
environment. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They weren't trying to control the environment,
Yep.
which is what we
It
tend to
was
do now.
it was offering some, accentuations that allowed them to gain some harvest. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's an interesting. It's just like you can eat ulam from the trees. You can. I mean, like actually, moringa is quite an interesting one because
Yeah.
you can
So
eat
you need everything.
you can eat the leaf, you can eat the drumstick, and there's
Yeah.
seed. Yes,
Yeah. The
yeah,
flowers.
yeah. And then while I think of it, actually, because I'm sort of plotting it out, it feels as if we're sort of figuring it all out. But actually, what I really want to do is have a lot of structure, but leave a lot of gaps because I really want to. Because kids are not curious here. I want to figure out how can we trigger that curiosity so that they actually ask questions. Right?
Okay.
It's like you kind of need to leave a gap so that they've got some room to actually have a question percolate in their head,
Hmm.
and
But it is culture building because curiosity cannot happen in one session. It has to happen over a period of time,
yeah,
and they must take space to be curious because the way the Malaysian education system
sure,
is
yeah,
conducted, it doesn't give you that much space.
no,
When I ask you a question, you have to have the answer. So if you don't
yeah,
know the answer, memorize something that gives me an answer.
sure,
So
yeah,
we've conditioned them to be in that reactive
yeah,
state. And that's
yeah. And
very
actually,
bad.
when I speak to Shamala, kids are punished for thinking differently. Like,
Yes.
don't ask
I'm
your
that
stupid
kid.
question.
I'm that kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not encouraged. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something we do need to do. And then moving on to sort of the actual growing wisdom part of it.
Yep.
So what's good here is actually we do grow organically. So there's a lot of examples of composting, how we make the composting,
Yep.
how we use mulching as a way to control weeds, to control water evaporation,
Yep.
um, and then fertilization, we actually only use natural manures. We don't use any kind of chemical petroleum based. So these are things that we kind of want to uh, teach. Actually, we want to let them know that it might be easier to use a chemical fertilizer, but this is the real cost of it.
You know,
So
it took me many years to really digest chemical fertilizers from petroleum. Although I worked in the oil and gas field, I really I
oh
remember
yeah,
one day
yeah, yeah, yeah,
chemical fertilizer, and I'm thinking like, but chemistry is good. Chemistry is meant to propel
sure,
mankind forward by making things more efficient. It's calibrated, right? And then you understand that the minerals that are extracted from one point, refined to a certain point, and then put into a different ecosystem, does certain things, but also does other things. Like it creates more salt in the sand. It makes it, it just
Layla.
bangs all that salt, and then it also kills other things. And it took me a long time as an adult to figure it out. So I think that's something a little bit heavy to put on the kids, but I think it's
Actually, you know what? You know what's really interesting?
mm,
I had the absolute opposite thing.
mm,
I learned it because I read a book,
mhm,
Omnivore's Dilemma, and then when Michael Pollan did a tour, He explained it really simply. He said, "This burger, this much oil. This is how much oil it takes to create the pesticides. It needs to grow the corn to feed the cow."
But that's higher level thinking. And kids below 12 don't
Yeah,
have
but
that
it's quite
unless they're
easy to
memorizing it.
understand. It's very easy to understand because they can see how these two components. They can see
No,
two
but
volumes.
that's not how pedagogical cognition works. When they are very young, the
Yeah,
logical brain cannot compute this information.
really.
It's not that they don't want to, they just cannot compute this information because their brain is in survival mechanism where they're still looking for social interaction. So logic is not they can memorize, but they won't understand it as well. There are few that will, but the majority won't. And that's the problem. That's the difference between below 12 and above 15. The brain has evolved to that level of logical acceptance. So that touch and feel, that taste, that interacting with your friends, the peer learning, that process is important
That's
for below
stronger.
12. Yeah, they can
Yeah,
connect to it better. So if you ask them to take a banana peel, mash it up, leave it over the 2 days that they're with us, and then use that as fertilizer, that's something they can immediately understand. Organic fertilizer made from banana peel. It's banana peel tea. And then that they pour on their plants, and then that's going to be fertilizer. Very easy for them to understand because it's visceral. But if you tell them the chemistry behind the food below 12, very difficult to accept cognitively. Yeah,
yeah,
they can memorize it as a fact.
but the thing is, we cannot standardize kids also because I found that when doing a lot of programming for kids, one kid is going to be able to get that, and you give it to and you yeah, and you do it for that kid, regardless of
Yeah,
whether
yeah, yeah.
nine other kids don't get it.
It
You
will
really
be
got to
a
put
by the way fact, fun
yeah,
fact thing.
yeah,
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 that's fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's we've got to otherwise everything's dumbed down for the for the kid that actually doesn't even want to be there. There's like thirty
Yeah,
percent of the
I
group.
don't think it's fair to say it's dumbed down. I think it is scaffolded for them to understand what they're progressing into. Because there's gonna be a lot. Over 2 days, you've got like 8 sessions,
Actually, no,
right?
no, I've got to push back
Yeah.
against that because you said you were that kid. I was that kid that was bored. I was bored shitless in class because
Mm.
I was brighter. I was smarter, and I just found it also boring. And you kind of lose interest in whatever. So I think we
I think
gotta
you
pitch
just
it.
have to know the kids.
You
Yeah,
gotta
you
pitch
need to
it
know
to
the kids.
everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody must get a little slice of the pie. So we don't
Yeah.
take out the difficult parts.
No, I'm
We
not
got to
saying take
keep.
it out, but
Yeah,
I'm also being realistic about what they can, in general,
yeah,
understand and what they would just end up memorizing because. So
yeah.
just that there's
Well,
a
I think
little bit of
that actually also comes with this leaving some space to understand what is going on, because you can
mm,
sometimes see what's going on in the interaction. If it's too
yeah, yeah, yeah,
pedagogic
for
where
sure.
you're just telling them what to do, then you don't
Yeah.
even know what's going on. But if there's some room which, and we need to actually teach them that early, like
Mm.
asking questions and all this kind of stuff. Although that's also quite difficult, because kids here are so formatted in this other way of doing it that it's actually quite hard for them to
I think
break
we can
out of
front
this.
load them for the second day's like activities, and
Yeah,
we can introduce it a little bit vaguely, and then they can
yeah,
come back with questions the next
yeah.
day. And as we're doing it, I'm sure the questions will develop. You know?
Having said that,
Yeah.
the other demographic which is something that we were surprised at when we did our forest school thing,
Yeah.
is actually the kid whose parents is going to be willing to send them to this are actually quite evolved. Those
Yeah,
kids
yeah, yeah. Because
actually,
they're homeschoolers and they do a lot
yeah,
of
they're
things.
they're at a
Yeah.
they're at quite a different level. Remember
Yeah.
when we did that nature camp,
Yeah.
and we had a lot of problem with my gardener's kid. Remember, I thought it
Mm-hmm.
was a good idea to bring my gardener's kid and
Mm-hmm.
see whether, but we actually struggled with her because she was very, very, she struggled with the group, right?
But
Because
it was
she,
something very out of her, it's not her norm, to interact
yeah,
with
yeah,
boys and
yeah,
girls. Yeah.
yeah. she kept trying to impose her was im- what she had been impressed at what was important. Like she was really interested in what she was wearing and
Yeah.
how halal the food was all those things were much more important to her
Yeah.
than the other stuff.
Mm.
So we'll see how this
Mm.
kind of
Yeah,
turns
but
out.
that's quite normal when two different world views meet. There will
Yeah.
be that. Yeah.
Well, in a way, that is also a mirror image of the adult world. The adult world is like
Yeah,
this
for
now.
sure. Yep.
You know,
Yep.
we
I think
have
because you're gonna prepare food for them, that will also be part of the larger conversation.
yeah,
Because the last
like
time I remember the kids were like, "Oh my god, we're eating flowers." They'd never eaten flowers before that. So that would also be part of that process of what else can you eat? What have you what foods you have prejudice against.
yeah. Well, actually, just to hark back to that program that we did, one of the most successful parts of it was actually lunch, right? And we decided to do
Yeah.
a plant based lunch. Uh,
Yeah.
and what was it like? 3 or 4 of the kids were actually vegan, right?
Yes, that family, yeah.
Yeah. It was two actually. There was the 3 girls and that one kid. So there was 4 of them that were actually vegan,
Mm.
and we were trying to find common ground. And actually, there was a lot of common ground. People, actually, I've had this problem before in another program where
Mm.
we want to teach plant based foods because people think. I think that the trouble with plant based foods here is people associate them with cultural and religious values. You
Yeah.
know, it's it's X that needs to eat a vegetarian meal.
Yeah.
As opposed to this notion that actually plant based is just better for the planet.
Anyone,
You know,
yeah.
it's also better for health. A lot of
Mm.
we're eating too much protein, and it's actually causing problems. Red meats are causing problems. So we actually want to be moving back closer to how we ate in the 70s, which is something like 70% vegetables, you know,
Mm.
and everything in small amounts of meat and fish, more as sort of accents of protein and accents of flavor in a much more plant-based, rich diet. And part of that plant-based diet is protein rich as well because there were pulses and stuff like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
involved in it.
Plant protein. Yeah.
Huh? Yeah,
Plant
even
protein.
something as simple as like green beans that we eat kacang panjang here, which is that long bean, right? But now you see more of the French bean for sale in the supermarket.
Mm.
And I recently discovered, I actually didn't know this until I sort of came across it, that our kacang panjang is much more nutritious than the French bean because it's more related to a bean.
Yeah.
So it has more protein, there's more fiber, it's better. So
Yeah.
so since then I've been switching out to eating the long bean a little more,
Right.
you know. So
Long beans.
do you like long beans? Kacang
I
panjang?
guess certain things, yeah. I love it
Okay.
in pachal. Woohoo.
Yeah,
I like
I
it.
use a lot of
Put
it.
it in fried rice. I
Yes,
like
I like
it.
that.
When put long beans and eggs.
Okay.
Delicious.
There are also Western ways of doing it. Like I put long beans in salad because it's like
Okay.
what's that French one with the tomatoes and the beans and the tuna? That one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I use that bean because it's also quite nutritious. Yeah.
Right.
Um. Okay. Let me pull up my list. So you had a look at that list, right?
I did. I did. I just had a quick browse at it. Yeah, I think
I
mine
actually
was also
struggle with
like,
it. I actually need some feedback about the timing. If you think that is enough time to actually do those things.
no, I think that was my side note was that it's got to be heavily prepped, like for teaching
Yeah.
composting, for instance, right? To show the compost in your garden is one thing, but to teach them how to make a
But
little
yeah,
bit of compost.
I think okay, that's a good point. I don't think we're gonna go crazy trying to teach them how to compost things. I think we just want to show them what.
Putting it together, assembling
Yeah,
one in a pot, you know.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
we
that's
just want to tell them what it. We'll probably show them in different jars. This is how it starts. This is
yeah,
how it ends. This is what it's for.
right.
I mean,
Yeah,
basically, I find that actually a lot of adults confuse compost with fertilizer. They don't actually understand the point of either of those things.
yeah,
And uh, and that is something that I definitely we want to make clear. Compost is for structure. It actually helps structure. It builds a structure in the
great
soil.
to is great to what's that? When you're doing your seedlings,
Yes,
it's
yeah,
great potting mix for starter. But you don't
yeah,
need it
yeah,
for like the whole plant life cycle. Yeah,
yeah. But you actually need it in soil to create the spaces between the other things
yep,
because
yep,
that's where the microbes live, and it's the microbes that really enrich the soil. So it's a
yep,
very important component, but it doesn't work the same way as fertilizer. It doesn't add
yep.
nutrient. It actually adds architectural. Is an
Mm,
architectural component, and a lot of
yep,
people confuse that, and they only use compost as a
yep.
fertilizer, and they're wondering why does this not work. When you actually do need fertilizer as well, you do need that sort of nitrogen rich poop fertilizer.
Yeah.
That is,
I mean, you can eat an ice cream with a fork only when it's frozen. Once
what's
it
that?
becomes a slurry, the fork don't work no more. No, the metaphor is you can't eat an ice cream with a fork. Yeah.
Um, I think what is going to be a tough call is what I've given you for the end, which is
Mm,
it's the waste, energy, sustainability,
mm,
environment, ethics, worker
yeah.
thing. Is actually going to be
Yeah.
you got to figure out a way to sort
Yeah.
of.
So I guess I can, because I have some of the content from what I did for Singapore. So that's not a
Mm,
problem. The question is more like once I have a sense of the kids on the first day, then
sure,
I know what to keep and what to filter out. Then I'll just
sure,
follow that thread. Yeah. Yeah,
sure.
because I could easily get them to be cows pulling, a hoe, a plow, and then they understand, the horsepower to manpower to equation of
Ah,
energy. And then we go like, okay, so now if we don't want to use a cow to do that, then now what do we use? We use it, if it's not charcoal, if we're not doing it ourselves, we're using an animal. What is it? So that context we can set very quickly, and then from there then you can go into ethics and other things. But I just
yeah,
need to I need to gauge the kids first, and then define
sure, sure.
which layer I'm going to take. Yeah.
I think site wise as well, we do have
Yep.
examples of things like we do have rainwater harvesting. It's
Yep.
very passive though. We don't really actively use it because it's actually a bit of a pain in the ass to use.
Yep.
So it's only like backup, but it's there, so we can kind of show them like how it's kind of done.
Yep.
Uh, I I tend to be more interested in using mulch as to hold the moisture in, you know, so that
Yep.
it doesn't get flooded with water and it also doesn't lose water when it's too hot. And
Yeah.
that I think it's a particularly interesting, unique, and local solution for us, which is great. And
Soil makes part of like the arsenal of a good growing garden.
yeah, and we get it from the city, and it's a great way to actually just use up waste. Rather than put all the stuff in bags and throw it out. These are things that we actually can use to,
Yeah.
as we are, So I think this is part of the idea of the knowledge about growing things is on the understanding of also just zero waste. Like how do we keep that loop?
Yeah, like for instance, when we eat like say prawns and if we are cutting out the fish parts like the heads and the tails and stuff like that, what I usually do is I freeze it and I dig my like my fruit trees, and I just dig a hole. There's always a hole there,
Oh,
and
okay.
I just bury it and I fill that up with like dry leaves and I cover it with like a
Oh,
hot cup. So I'm always
You know
feeding
what?
it.
I don't think I can do that here
So
because the dogs would be digging that shit up.
yeah, you have dogs. I don't. I have cats, but my cat wins the
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So yeah,
okay.
no, but
So that's
things
actually
are
something
different.
else that we do want. That's something else I do want to teach. We want to impart is you've got to figure out what's the best thing to do for you,
Yep,
right?
yep,
It's like what suits you, your house, your
yep,
family, your
yep,
food needs, all this.
yep.
So I think this is also part of like
So
understanding.
customization makes sustainability doable.
Yeah,
Because if you don't customize and you just cut and paste something, it's never
sure.
gonna quite fit what you need, you know? And
Yeah,
then sometimes you need to do more of something and sometimes you need to do less of something
yeah.
because that's just the way your lifestyle is. Yeah.
Another thing actually, which I want to solve too is, and we have said this many, many times is, not only are kids not so curious, they're also not very good at articulating. They don't talk about things.
Yeah.
Uh, so, so that is something that we need to put in there. It's like, how do we encourage or trigger that kind of articulation? Sometimes that's just maybe it's drawing. So I'll have to figure out how they're gonna uh, take down notes or draw or
Yeah.
what we did before is we always gave them a notebook, but we never said you had this is we're gonna
Yeah.
test you at the end. It's like you put whatever you want. You can write it down, you can draw it, you can stick if you like something, you find something you like, you can stick that in. So it's actually just we want you to collect information. We want you to observe.
Mm.
We want you to collect information in some way, either through your brain or through your writing or whatever. And then we also want you to articulate it. We want you to talk about it. You know,
Yeah.
we want you to form memories about it and sort of discuss it with us and
And I think
discuss it with your peers.
the last time we sang a song about what was it? Um about butterflies. And the
Oh,
kids didn't know it. Like the local nursery rhymes around butterflies. Oh my god, it's not coming to me
yeah,
right
yeah. I
now.
think I
Okay,
know the
the
one you
frog
mean.
one,
Like, yeah.
lompat, sikata, lompat, lompat ke tinggi-tinggi. So those songs are lost because they don't know them. And it's literally about the frog running away from, predators and into the pond. So when we do the landscape conversation, we can talk about the songs that kids used to sing about the landscape around them. So that these will be the little how to say fun learning activities that will feed an awareness of the biodiversity in their garden. Yeah.
Mm. Another thing is, so personally, I used to spend a lot of time at my grandmother's house, and
Mm,
my grandmother didn't grow anything to eat, no veg, whatever,
mm,
but she grew a lot of things for her enjoyment. You know, which is also something I don't want to not teach kids. I think that's an important thing too, because that actually shaped me. I mean, I have become a landscape designer. It's like because I do love how you can build a garden. She used to collect things. I remember the first thing the, when I was really young, she used to collect ferns, and there was like this
okay.
whole section of what?
Now it's this seasonal ornamental gardener.
So she grew she had like a little section which was all these different maidenhair ferns, and this fern, that fern. So this idea of a collection of things was quite interesting, a
Yeah.
botanical collection. And then he moved on to, and then the first house they lived in, they had a lot of trees. There was a lot of fruit trees,
Mm.
you know. So we learned to have fun in that environment, climb them, eat them when they were in season, that kind of thing. And then when they moved to a smaller house in town, she started to grow, what's that? Empress of India. It's, something indica. And she just had a collection of them. They were all slightly different colors, and she took a
Oh,
lot of pride in it. And it was a very much a sort of a daily ritual that she
I
would
feel
go out.
like gardening was grandma's way of work-life balance. That was her me
Yeah,
time.
yeah, I agree.
Nobody will bug them gardening.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then
So
they have the pleasure of
I
the
can remember. I can remember because she would make a ritual of every evening around 6 o'clock. because it's cooler, right? That's what people did.
Yes.
When it was cooler, we'd go in the garden and I would join her and she would water her, she would spray all
Yeah.
her thing. She would pick all the
Okay.
dead thing. So it was very ritualistic. It was very, very calming and,
Yeah.
peaceful. And I kind of osmosed that a little bit.
Mm.
And I think that's worth teaching. I think that's something
Yeah.
we shouldn't discourage because, and I think that's the problem of just having programs that teach kids to grow vegetables. That's a very different kind of thing to grow.
Yeah.
The way vegetables are grown are very different from the way flowers and shrubs and ferns are grown. You know,
Yeah.
so I think that's between now and the thing, I need to think about how do we communicate that kind of thing. But I think one way that it will be communicated is because the site, my garden, is a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Because we do grow things to harvest, and then we also grow things for landscaping. So
Yeah.
we've got a lot of variety of
Look at your
things.
porch. Look at your porch. Your porch
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
is a little size of paradise. It's like it's
yeah,
fern. It's like
yeah,
shady plants. Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely
And
ornament.
in fact, I grow it to do that because when we are going to, if we're doing a project, I quite like to bring the client to walk around and just say, okay, because that's the other thing that a lot of adults are not. They don't understand the difference. They don't understand situation of plants. Like, they
Yeah.
want things here when those things are not going to grow there. You know,
Yeah.
like they have
Yeah.
this very shady backyard and they want flowers. I'm like, the flowers are just not going to thrive here.
Yeah.
You want lush foliage, Balinese, that we can do. That's really easy. So that's one reason I do it is actually so I can walk them around and say, this does well. We
Yeah.
have full sun here, so this is why
Yeah.
this does well. And then we have full shade here, and then we have half day here. So you get this sort of examples of situations that kind of describe the thing.
Mm.
Um, okay, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, and then I jumped to the fact that you're going to do something called the Good Farmer, which is that how because it's going to be the last module, so they'll be piecing together things they already know, and then we are
Yeah.
gonna then communicate. Okay, if you really like this and you really want to do it, then here's how you can really do it. Well, these are the sort of things you need to think about. But preceding that, I will do one called the Good Gardener, which is actually more about what I just talked about, which is you don't have to grow vegetables. You can just grow a really pretty garden if that's what you want to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Um, or you can grow a hybrid garden because that's also something quite common. Like you see in Europe and the US, you have things like kitchen gardens and cottages and vegetables mixed in the
That's very
border with
interesting.
roses, and it's mixed. And I don't think that is communicated enough to kids that you can make these choices. That there are choices
Yeah,
that can
but
be
there's also very few examples for them to see. You
true,
know,
true.
so having examples tend to okay. Like for instance, I went to Disneyland as an adult. When I got
Where? Which
there,
one? Which one?
um, California. What's it called?
Oh yeah,
Anaheim.
L.A. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I realized was the area near Cinderella's section. The garden was all cabbages, colorful cabbages.
Oh really?
Yeah, and
Okay.
peppercorn. Yeah,
Okay.
so the landscape was edible.
All right.
It was really interesting. But and then it dawned on me like there was a fairy tale that the father had gone into the witch's garden to take a vegetable, and I think it was Cinderella. I can't remember the original story. So I think the mom was pregnant, and then she had a craving, and she wanted the vegetable from the neighbor, and the neighbor was a witch, and the father had creeped into the garden and stolen something. And I think that's where the narrative of Cinderella's or it could be a different character in the stories, but the garden was all like edibles. So that was very interesting. I have a picture of that somewhere. I don't know where.
I it's so weird because my theme park was when I was a kid was Have you ever been to this in Singapore? It's Haw Villa, the Tiger Balm Garden,
Nope.
which is the grotesque, sculptures of people in all the layers of hell. You know what I mean?
No. What? I've been to the Thai one, the one that's
But
like
he
a
was amazing. He was also amazing. It was,
temple.
yeah, it was kind of amazing because it was so like artistic in a way, but it was
Yeah.
actually very gory and gruesome. But I kind of loved it. Yeah.
Right. I think the
Um,
Thai one has the same vibe, but it's a white temple in Chiang Mai or Chiang Rai, and as you enter the temple, there's like just hands, sculpture of hands, and
yeah.
you walk right in the middle, and all these hands are like at your knee level, and then you go in, and then there's like a Buddha, and then there's all these like souls ascending to
Right. Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's its own thing. It's
Which also goes to show kids can be really easily influenced, You
yes.
know, that just that one thing could maybe it could trigger something. And that I always work on that principle, you
Mm.
know. Like, okay, 30 kids, it's
You're gonna
actually
hit one. Yeah.
there'll be like two kids that are really going to be really interested and they will like really follow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, there'll be the same two kids at the other end that just don't even want to be there.
Yeah.
It's like they're falling asleep and, and you just kind of have to
Yeah.
kind of deal with it. It's just one of those things. But who knows what that one or one of those 10 kids are going to do with that information, which I think is what's kind of interesting. Um, I, mine was, I think I was like 8 years old and my friend's dad had helped him make a book, like a handmade
Mm.
book.
Right.
And in it, uh, the dad encouraged him to stick like any seeds he found and leaves he found and stuff like that. And he sat next to me in class, right? And when he showed it to me, I was like, I was so excited. But this, I mean, just I don't know what it was. It was just I don't know. It was the idea of
I
like
think the art value knocked you out. That's it. I think
it's
you were like, oh
art
my god, mutual
value.
stimulation.
It's also the collecting thing, the holding the information for a future date, because that is actually what I'm like now. This is what I do now.
Right. Right.
I use different processes. I use computers and
Yeah.
fold them, all that kind of stuff. But that is
Yeah.
exactly what you do, particularly when you do creative work. You're always collecting information and storing it because you sometimes you can't use
You
it
don't
that
know
day.
when it's gonna match up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was
And that's
funny is that I loved it. He hated it.
yeah.
He thought it was just like the
Because it
same.
was a task.
It was a
Because it was
task.
a task. Yeah. No, but this is the thing, right? The sweet spot is aptitude
Yeah.
meets skill, or aptitude meets opportunity.
What were
You
you
know,
like as a kid? I'm trying to.
because my
Were
mom did
you
architecture, so my mom was really good at drawing. I sucked at drawing, so I would
okay?
like something, and I was like, "Ma, draw that," and then my mom would draw it up for me, and then I just keep it, and I never know where it goes, but it's just somewhere, you know.
Okay.
And um, I used to like making things like bracelets. And my good friend in primary school, we used to walk so we lived on a hill, and there were a lot of these waterways. Essentially they were drains, so we would walk through the drain from one section of the area that we lived in to another section.
Right.
And as we walked through that, we would collect moss, and we would see like wildlife. We'd get chased by dogs, we'd see monkeys, we'd see a whole bunch of different things. And that was pretty much my childhood. There's a lot of it was outdoors and like meeting people and like
Yeah. Actually, me
negotiating our
too.
way
Me
out of a
too.
knot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I. We lived next door to. So we lived in a government house, which is
Right.
government quarters, and there was
Mhm.
two of them. And the kids next door were, I think a lot of them were older, so I didn't really play with them that much. But
Right.
on this side, there used to be a Masonic lodge. Do you know what that is?
Okay.
Like
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
really this European kind of building. And there used to be a caretaker and his family. And I played with his kids a lot. So, and that was very interesting because the mother had chickens. She grew some
Right.
vegetables. The chickens used to lay eggs in our hedge, which, was like, whoa. When she came and found an egg one day, it was like a miracle.
I
And
found when I discovered that chickens sleep on trees, I was like, why are they living on trees? Yeah. Yeah, the
yeah,
things that you don't
so
know because you just assume all chickens come from barns or some kind of chicken coop or some kind of house. Yeah,
hey,
because that's what moms do.
no, no, it's even worse now. Kids think chickens come in packets.
Oy.
Somebody told me that when they took their kid, I think it's Singaporean, they took their kid and they said, "Oh, this is a chicken." It's like, what? That's a chicken? Because he's only ever seen chicken.
With feathers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Actually,
I
I
think we
was,
have unexamined assumptions. It is not just because we did not examine the assumption. It's because it was presented to us such.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
They were given values as well, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
you don't understand anything beyond what you can see. And
yeah,
sometimes your parents are not able to offer you any different because they themselves
yeah,
don't know. And I feel like
yeah.
sometimes even me and my mom we argue about certain things. I'm like, do you really have to do it that way? And then she goes like, what other way is there? I'm like, let's figure it out. Now that you're open to thinking about it, let's figure it
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah.
He hates it.
Another
Because my mom's
interesting
very
and
structured. She's very
uh,
she follows through what's always been
sure,
said.
sure.
Yeah.
Another analogy which I thought of was actually when I first went to New York, and I met a lot of Americans who had come from like Ohio and
Right.
places like that. And just as a side note, what was interesting is that they were different in their towns, and that's why they came to New York. And then they come to New York, and then they find their tribe. They find all the black sheep have moved to New
I
York.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But what was interesting is a lot of them that came from these like Ohio and places like that. So
Mhm.
they were kids in the 60s, 70s, even up to the 80s, and they actually ate very badly. They ate, I think, what they call box foods, macaroni, Kraft macaroni in a box. So mom would just in the evening just stir it up and
Like
bake
a
it.
microwave meal kind of a thing.
Not microwave, but it was all like hamburger
Pre-made.
helper. It was
Right, right.
pre-made. Yeah, yeah. There's not like my background, which is going to the market and you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
all that. However, we did have one corresponding thing, which was as Eurasians, we kind of wanted to eat more Western things. And one of the
Okay.
only ways you could eat Western things was through tin.
Yeah,
So we ate things that are actually like just not very good foods, like tinned asparagus,
yeah,
or and like artichoke hearts, whatever, things that are actually very, very, in the West, they're kind of not, whereas here they had a lot of value because they were expensive. We only ate them
yeah,
at Christmas, you know.
yeah.
So
Seasonal.
that was quite an interesting comparison of like how you imbue something with value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
I was staying with my adopted family for like the weekend in Japan, and I think the granddaughter brought me cake in a tin, and I'm like, okay, what are we eating? No, it was bread in a tin. It was like in a little tin, and
yeah.
to her that was like it's like "It's bread in a tin. It's like a thing." Then I'm like, okay, bread in a tin. So yeah, I guess it's marketing. It's how it's brought to you.
Yeah, it's how it's presented. Another thing was like, so we would eat, okay, so we would eat like fruit cake, Christmas cake at Christmas,
Yeah.
but some of our aunts were sort of legendary cake makers,
Oh,
and they
nice.
would send the cake to each family, but the cake is only like this big. So it's
Yeah.
like Christmas morning, and you cut like a little teeny tiny piece of cake, and you sort of really savor it because it's so special. It's once a year, you know.
Right,
But
right.
these things have stayed with me. So now I'm like a bit indifferent to Eurasian food, but around Christmas, I'm starting to think, oh, because it's triggered all these sort of memories of where food was made very special, and
Yeah.
it's kind of
But it's
weird.
also worth the time it takes to make these special foods because people are coming
Yeah,
to you. They're
sure.
congregating. So you would ritualize the making because then you
Yeah,
can make it together and that's when you pass on
yeah.
recipe. I mean, like I see it during Chinese New Year because Lyman's mom does a whole egg tart. Everybody has to come. If you don't come, you don't get a tin kind of a thing. So she
Actually, that's
holds
a
that
very
ransom.
that's a very interesting thing that I must remember to include when we're talking about food, because it's actually in Christopher Tan's book, The Way of Kue. And
Yeah.
it's actually
Actually
an excellent
Portuguese.
it's an excellent book. He
Yeah.
talks about the anthropology of it, he talks about the science of it, he talks about
Yeah.
the history of it, and he breaks it all down. It's very technical, it's very informative. But he also talks about the social side of it. He said,
Right.
you need a village to make kueh. Some kueh you cannot make yourself. You know, you need a
Yes.
whole bunch of people to be
That was what
stirring
Tanjong
and
Piai was about. Tanjong
yeah.
Piai was about exploring the supply chain to make kueh. Because the
Mm,
guy who harvested the old coconut to the guy who made the santan to the lady who
yeah,
made the kueh, who then had to combine it with the person who brought in the paddy and made the glutinous rice. And then that combination was
yeah,
made and brought to
yeah.
market. And that was just one item. And then the sugar, the
That
sugar,
is actually part of our edible landscape thing. Is that is something that a kid actually doesn't is completely disconnected from, because most adults are, like sometimes people are shocked when I'm asking them where it's come from, you know,
like, why do you need to know,
because it's
Chris?
like, why do you need to know? Yeah, what's it? It's good quality, What are you asking?
Yeah, yeah. Don't question that.
Yeah, and it's so funny because actually now if you go to a supermarket, it's labeled a bit better. Have you
Yeah.
noticed? Is it? Is it?
It's also consumer push, right? Consumers want to know where is it coming from.
But is it law? Is it like?
No,
Is
it's
it?
not law. I think makers have recognized the artisanal value of local and the curiosity of people to buy it just because it's something that is refined, in a
Yeah,
particular.
yeah. So it's quite interesting that someone like me, I'll go to like NSK, and I'm
Wrong
agonizing
page,
about buying. Huh? What?
wrong page because they don't label most things there.
No, they do. They do. Everything's
Is
labeled.
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm agonizing about buying potatoes because I'm already conflicted because potatoes don't come from here. They come from
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
And, part of me is like, buy sweet potato. At least they're coming from,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
But then
really
the potato,
enjoy
but when
potatoes
it comes,
in
but then
India.
potato is deeply emotionally satisfying for me because I grew up with potatoes. I
Yeah.
lived in the
Yeah.
West. I love potatoes. I love mashed potatoes. I
Yeah.
love potatoes. And then I start to agonize about the difference between a Bangladesh potato and a China potato.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know what to do. It's like, I need to research this. I need to check. Are they growing it better in Bangladesh? Because maybe, my immediate bias is that it's probably worse coming from China. They're probably more pesticide. I don't know, whatever. But who knows what they're doing in Bangladesh?
Mm.
One thing that does reassure me for when it comes from a third world country that's a little bit lower in the rung is they actually don't spend as much on fertilizer because fertilizer is expensive, you know. So I tend to lean towards the Bangladeshi potato.
Right. Does it
And
cook
then,
differently though?
huh?
Does it
Not
cook differently
really.
though?
Not
Yeah.
really. Not really. But you know what? Another interesting thing is when I went to my gardeners for Hari Raya,
Mm.
and they make a curry with a small circular potato,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is
That
really
one you
tasty,
buy very specifically.
and it's
They can't
really
get it.
expensive. And it's expensive. It's like imported
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Myanmar.
Mm.
Yeah. they will spend money on that potato for Hari, because it's Hari Raya. And I was like, oh, but
Mm.
it's really nice. It's a kind of, it's a bit like in the States, it's a kind of like a gourmet potato. It's like a fingerling or
Mm.
something that you would actually cook whole and put in a salad or something,
Yeah.
you know?
Or roast. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do try to eat more sweet potato.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it roasts quite well in the,
We
in
we
the,
make we make sweet potato mashed. Yeah, and
okay.
we've not gone back from that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's nice to smash.
Okay. I think we're hit the hour mark. How
And
shall
I'm
we wrap
hungry.
up? Huh?
And I'm hungry.
So we actually, you, me, and Akata, maybe we need a Zoom meeting to just run over this. I'm quite
Sure.
curious about whether once you looked at it a little closer, like, do you have enough
Yeah,
time to do this?
I do. Yeah. I
And
I I scrolled through it. So there's two versions of the document. This I read the second one. I thought it was pretty similar. But yeah, I read the
is
second.
that your version? What do you mean?
Yeah, or rather, you said it twice. You
I
sent
sent
the
it
same.
twice because I added Shamala later.
Okay, okay. So it's the
So
same. So
because
I
it's the
felt
same
like there
thing.
was no
Yeah, yeah,
difference between the.
yeah.
Yeah. So
I
yeah.
also leaned, I laid it out to lean into our own specific skills. So we can also, they're interchangeable. I mean, you can probably do some
Yeah.
things, whatever. But Akata had the most technical ones, like the
Mm.
soil, making the soil thing. And, because he used to run a farm. So he's quite,
Yeah. Yeah. No, and you need to show them what it looks like, what the soil looks like.
yeah,
Eh?
yeah. And then I wanted you to lean into broader ideas, like seed saving, the environmental stuff.
Yeah. I also need Akata to help me like grab some, like long bean dried pods and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe if you think about it,
Yeah.
because
So
we will
I
also
kind of made some notes. So
okay,
when we
because
meet
we will
next, then
probably
I will kind of ask
we
you that.
probably want to do like a TV thing where okay, this is 1 week old, this is 2 weeks old. Otherwise
Okay.
it's hard to communicate those things. And then I'm leaning more into the garden design thing. I didn't finish telling you that it's actually the second last module when they've got all this information. It's like, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to build a garden? Because if you want to build a garden, you have to figure out, okay, what do you have to build your garden in? Do you need to remedy your landscape? Do you need to remedy your soil? Uh, do you want to fulfill an idea as opposed to grow something that's because you can also do that, you know. I don't push back against people who unless it's impossible. It's like
Yeah.
I want this because I love this.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it'll cost you in time and replacement and stuff like that. But hey, it's part of a creative process. It's part of a learning process.
Yeah.
And and then um, and then also something which is some basic garden design is just layering, like ground cover, small shrub, back of the border type things. These are things that people really don't know anything about here. Everything is just a lot of like ground cover because
Yeah.
we're still growing 19th century style gardens, Victorian 19th century bedding gardens. You know, we have a lot, because that's what people see in their environment. They see a lot of those kind of gardens. They
Also,
see a
space,
lot.
the limitation of space, it forces you to filter out things that won't have efficiency or symbiotic like
Actually,
connection.
no, it's actually style also because they don't grow wilder type gardens, which is more
Mm.
you will see more like a cottage garden is a little bit wilder. You're mixing things that are growing at different different rates. There'll be like skinny things poking through smaller things, and
Right.
and and they're also like variables over time. This comes out in spring, this comes out in summer, this comes out in
Mm.
fall, that kind of thing. So these are things actually we don't see in
But we
our
don't have that
yeah,
circular time cycle. We're just one season, wet and dry
sure,
and hot.
sure,
So,
yeah,
dry season, certain things die back,
yeah.
most things survive. and then wet season, some things thrive, and then some things die out. So you got that much of difference, but
And
still
then
very
there's
minor.
also this whole wild and weedy compared to cultivated and
Mm,
allowed. And
yeah,
we actually blur that line here because, we grow things that are weeds because they are tasty or we sell them, we
yeah.
put them in,
I mean, here at the resort, we have a lot. I told my grass cutter to, in certain areas, he can cut it flat, because it's in fact, for instance, it's in front of the yoga pavilion or it's at the entrance, right? But in certain areas where the land dips and rises, and you have mimosas growing, the touch me
right.
nots. So I told him
Leave it.
leave that to grow
Yeah.
out, so that people don't fall into the dip. But at the same
Sure.
time, it's nice, beautiful. And then we've got patches of like little bushes of flowers. I said cut around it, leave that there, and then there's a kind of grass that has a white little flower, and another kind of grass that has a yellow little flower. I told him
Sure.
meander through all of that. So cut only the grasses that have the grass heads that stick to your pants, and then
Yeah.
the rest of it can leave, because only the yoga pavilion needs to be like clean cut, a little bit
Sure.
of a wonderland.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
getting to the point where the gardener understood what I was trying to go with
Yeah.
to me. So
Yeah.
it's a process.
No, because it drives me crazy. People grow a lot of lawns, but they don't actually use the lawn. People are not rolling around the
You
lawn
know
or,
who you know who sees all these things? Lyman.
yeah.
Lyman goes like, "Oh, I like the garden." Gonna love the guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I gotta
So,
go.
all right. So I'll talk to you again about this and we're going to see each other in September.
Yes. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
Bye.